Um, Boom, I remember to do that. That doesn't always happen. So this is EMBA. EMBA actually stands for Expanding Minority Business Access, and that's access to opportunity. This program was developed in partnership with the WBDC, which is the Women's Business Development Center, and CMSDC, which is Chicago Minority Supplier Development Council. It is funded in part. We're going to take a quick commercial break for our sponsors and our funders. So this was funded in part by a grant from the Fund for Equitable Business Growth with support from AT&T, Comcast, and Allstate. So usually I have to share this, but you all know me. I'm Lauren, Director of Small Business Development here at Bill Brownsville. All of you have my personal email address, but for everybody else, if they want to get in contact, they can email us at spdc@billbrownsville.com and check out billbrownsville.com for just kind of the latest, greatest information on our initiatives overall, the 5 initiatives that are under the umbrella of Bill Brownsville, and then specifically the work that we do here at the SBDC. So this workshop, if you will, is going to be about 45 minutes or so. We're going to, if you have a question, like I said, that's pertinent to what we're talking about right then, feel free to use the raise your hand feature and then just unmute yourself and ask the question. If you want to write things in the chat, Rebecca will be monitoring the chat. Let me give a very big thank you to my partner in crime, Rebecca, for helping put all these things together, but also kind of being the producer, if you will, behind the scenes for this. She'll answer things in the chat. I'm not good at monitoring the chat when I'm presenting material. After this, you will get a handout. There's a handout that goes with this information. And I know when I first went through it, I was a bit distracted trying to follow along with the handout and the material, and they aren't necessarily follow alongable. So I decided to send that out afterwards. You'll also get a post survey, like post training survey that we would love for you to fill out. So we'll know what to tweak for the next 2, and also a recording of this information. So I think I covered all the housekeeping things. So EMBA, the goal of EMBA is to literally expand minority business owners' access to opportunities at all different levels. That could be government, which is local, county, state, local meaning city. So city, county, state, or federal, utilities, corporations, you name it. There are ways for you to be able to boost your business through what we're going to talk about, which is certification, contracting, procurement. Depending on what stage your business is in and how much experience you have, going down this path could open the door to, what could be your biggest contract. For some people, that may be $50,000 to date. For some, it could be $1 million. And some of these things will help you get there. So it says, all the signs are pointing in the right direction. You're hearing, this is the time. Let's jump into it. So there are 2 worlds of contracting, if you will. Most people, when they think about contracting and certification and those types of things, they think about government contracting and government procurement, which is certainly one path. The other is corporate contracting, right? So what can the private sector buy from your business? If you're just starting out, which none of you actually are, but if you're just starting out, or even if you're in kind of the earlier stages, it's good to at least think about if you want to go down one of these directions, because then you can, from the beginning, model certain elements of your business to cater to those needs and to set you up for participating in these types of channels from the beginning, right? So what do I mean by that? One of those things is that business owners, who meet the 51% threshold of a certain criteria can become certified. And so certification is a vetting process that proves, right, that company ownership is 51% more of whatever that particular thing is. So it could be minority, woman, LGBTQ, veteran, disabled veteran. Believe it or not, there are lots of companies and people who have applied for or submitted bids and proposals for contracts that are set aside for these particular groups, have won said contracts, and those companies are owned by majority, the firm is owned by majority owners, right? Majority meaning white men owners. So certification is just a process to go through a lot of documentation and paperwork with a third party agency to say that you are who you say you are, basically. What we're going to go through our agenda. So opportunities, your offer, supplier inclusion, certification itself, the bidding process, and of course, free help, which is the business that we're in. They put this in here that preparing to go down these paths is like preparing for a road trip. So get packed, which is the preparation piece. Preparation, let me just take a moment to say, is going to save you a ton of time, effort, energy, and money in going down this process. One of my other teammates, Katrina Roddy, is on with us, who is a newly certified woman-owned business and minority woman-owned business, and she can, share some information, some stories, if you will, about that process and how tackling some of these things on the front end can help you, again, save time, energy, effort, etc. So under the get ready, taking the first step, which is being here, right? Something to consider while you're at this step is knowing or thinking about who it makes sense for you to go after. As we do this, kind of jot that down, right? What type of contracting or procurement opportunity makes sense for my business? Because what makes sense for, I saw both of you sign on earlier, so I'm gonna pick on you because you were my South Side pitchers, but what makes sense, the type of opportunity that makes sense for the record track to go down, is it the same one that makes sense for Moore's Brewing to go down, right? And vice versa. So who does it make sense for you to go after? Also being honest with yourself. Are you ready capacity-wise for bigger clients and contracts? The worst thing to do is to bid for one of these opportunities, you get it, and then you can't fulfill it, right? Because these circles are small, and now you're stuck with not a stellar reputation. Also, payment. Are you ready to wait for payment? These are not due on receipt type situations. These are net 30, 60, 90 day situations, and so you have to have the necessary cash flow to be able to get it going, right? Then we'll talk a little bit about getting on the road, going the distance, et cetera, et cetera. It's just a snapshot of how big of an opportunity is out there. 4.8 trillion from the federal government and private sector, even more than that. Let's talk about corporate contracting. So looking at this room, of this corporate boardroom, and on this one, please unmute and throw out some answers to me. Looking at this snapshot, what are products or services that this corporation could have bought from a small business?
Tables and chairs.
Absolutely. What else?
Art.
Absolutely. What else?
The paint job.
The paint, yep. Painting, yep. What about services?
Robert said HVAC.
Yes. HVAC, window washing, janitorial, right? So, and all of these, I know I work with folks who have businesses in literally all of those. So, corporations buy lots of things from small companies, right? Or contract them for a lot of things. The reasons why smaller companies are more agile, you all know that. You don't have layers of approvals. Competitive pricing, the more people that are bidding for things, the more competitive pricing is going to be. Innovation, going back to that same thought of smaller companies being more agile, your biggest, brightest ideas are likely coming from your smaller shops, just because, again, they don't have as many layers to slow it down, right? And then reflections. Customers want, especially now, their supply chain and the companies that they support to represent them. So think about it. I mean, I'm a Target girl. Arguably, we are beefing at the moment, but I have been a Target girl for the better part of 20 years, right? Target did not always have such a big representation of Black owned products and um products, right? They didn't have whole sections of the store that's like featured Black, yada yada yada. But they do now. And that's because they know Black girls love Target, right? So you want you want to appeal to your customer set. So as corporations, as you get ready to think about, going after corporations, you want to think about your core competencies. So you see in the top, it says capability statement. Capability statement is one of the documents that you will have to create. We'll talk about a little bit more later, but one of the documents that you'll have to create as you prepare your packaging for certification and then ultimately bidding to corporations or government entities. Inherent in your capability statement is your core competency statement. So what do you do exceptionally well, that they should consider you over somebody else? And as this, business owner, etc., puts it, they don't want a long list of adjectives, right? So you saying that I'm unique, I have exceptional service, I'm dependable, they're gonna be like, great, so is everybody else, right? So when you talk about your core competencies, it's like, what do you do specifically that is different? Again, that's something else you might want to think about and just start to jot down, because again, we're building the blocks for you to get your documentation together for submitting for this. So start to think about, what do you do exceptionally well? They, gave some examples here of, if you're a printing company, AI development company, urban farm, one of the things to point out, like, right, these are 3 or 4 things that are their core competencies. You want to also think about those from the perspective of what the entity you're bidding towards, what they're looking for, right? So if you're a printing company and you do these things that are listed, promotional items, signage, displays, offset printing, but you also do business cards, postcards, flyers. Well, if they're looking for large signage, if they're looking for banners, if they're looking for displays, you don't need to say, I also do business cards, postcards, flyers. They don't care. Right? They're only interested in learning more about your core competencies, and particularly as they are relevant to the needs that they're looking to have filled. Okay. This slide highlights 3, if you will, job titles that you may see as you're looking at these corporate bids or going for, or just saying to yourself, man, I want to get to Target. Who do I need to talk to at Target? You probably need to talk to their diversity and inclusion person. You need to talk to their supplier diversity person or their business outreach person. It's literally part of their job to research and connect with diverse vendors to fill different needs of their supply chain. So this is just, a slide that more so is here to familiarize you with language for who it is that you're looking for inside of these corporations, right? So, I'm the director of supplier diversity. That's who you're looking for. I'm the VP of business outreach. That's who you're looking for, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Because within the corporation scope of things, they are looking for companies that are certified as a blank, and fill in the blank, as a minority, as a veteran, as, as I've brought it off earlier, the number of ways that you can be certified. The certification process. Okay. So The process varies. One of the things that you'll come to know a lot or hear a lot as you go through the certification journey is that the answer is usually it depends, because it's a very, very varied process. It depends on who your business is, how old your business is, who the company is that you're going after. It depends on a bunch of things, right? But some of the things that they're going to ask you for, some of the things you need to start preparing, financial information. Included in that, if you're a company that is less than 3 years old, they will also require your personal tax information for whomever the owners of the listed stated owners of the company are. They're going to also want 3 years of personal tax information in addition to your business information, okay? They're gonna look for business details, proof of ownership, control, a bank card. We in our EMBA group meetings have had very lengthy discussions about a bank card. And, so I put that there, or I want to mention it here. So just so that it's on your radar, and more so because most banks no longer do bank cards. So it's something you have to start looking into. Some banks call them, I wrote it down from last week, a bank, and Rebecca and Katrina, correct me if I'm wrong in this, a bank resolution letter or a corporate resolution letter, right? That's also what it's called by some banks. Some banks, particularly ones that are online only, just flat out don't do it at all, right? So it's worth, even as a baby step, calling your bank or going into, hopefully you have a relationship with your banker and not just like I go to the bank, but calling me like, do you all have signature cards? When you filled out your application, did you have to sign a signature card? On average, the process, the timing of certification is 90 to 120 days after you've submitted complete documentation. I underscore complete, because every time let's say you submit your paperwork today, right? And you like, boom, 90 to 120 days from today. Well, if they come back to you 3 weeks from now and say, I need you to now submit me X. Okay, clock starts over. They come back a month after that, I need you to submit me Y, clock starts over. So it's 90 to 120 days after you have submitted complete documentation. However, on the other side of that, the process can be as short as 45 days. Which is going back to the preparation being key part. If you have everything, every I is dotted, every T is crossed, you're like, boom, I got it, right? I done went through all my stuff for Lauren, she done went through it with a red pen, et cetera, and you take it to the certifying agency, they have their reviewer review it, you could be in and out in 45 days, right? So again, it goes back to, it depends, because 45 days and 120 days is a decent difference. Here are 2 certifying agencies, and these are the 2 agencies that we are actually doing this program in partnership with. So the WBDC does WBE, right? So Women Business Development Center, also does Women's Business, I think it's Enterprise Certification. And the Chicago Minority Supplier Development Council does the Minority Business Enterprise Certification. So, once you are ready in the process, we're going to link you up directly with people at those agencies to move you along the way in the process. There are fees associated with certification applications. Fees vary from $250 to $500. Again, it depends. It depends on everything from the size of your business, meaning not number of people, but revenue size. From the size of your business to the type of certification it can vary. Scholarships, as I say, are potentially available from both agencies, actually. for your fees. You have to apply for it. It's not a guaranteed thing, but it should also be noted that the scholarships are reimbursable, right? So you still need to be prepared to spend whatever. If it's the $500 one, the $500 to get it done. This also want to underscore why preparation is key, but also you understanding who you want to sell to is key, and getting a certification that's relevant for who you want to sell to. If I am Uncle Earl's barbecue sauce is on here. If I'm Uncle Earl and my goal is to get on big box retail stores, then I don't need to go down the path for certifications that are relevant to government contracting. Because why, right? It's none of these things are reciprocal, just so we're clear. Like there's a slide later that will go into this detail, but if you are MBE, which is used for corporate, that's not the same thing as the government version of minority certification. And for the federal government, they're not the same thing. And one application isn't reciprocal to another, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a lot of documents to churn through. That's a lot of fees to churn through. Okay. They wanted to point out certification is a marketing tool. So this is, the whole point of it is to open doors, let me phrase this, to open opportunities. It's not a magic bullet. There is no, I get certified and boom, the cash will start coming in because, I get all these contracts. That's definitely not the way that this works. But it can open doors and opportunities. This piece talks really about some of the hesitation in certification. I mean, I touched a little bit on it in saying, depending on the age of your business, personal tax information is used. They are getting all up in your business, particularly for government certifications, all as far up in your business as possible. So if you are not at the place where you are comfortable with that, then this may not be the path for you. But like go into it from the beginning, understanding that like getting all up in the nuts and bolts, number one. But then the other side of it is that certification provides you with the opportunity, like I said, it opens some doors to be able to go to conferences and trade shows and things where you can have access to buyers and bid on business opportunities that non-certified businesses can't, right? And so that is another opportunity just to keep in mind. This is, a statement from an actual supplier inclusion professional. Just going back to the fact that this is part of their job, right? This is part of what drives them to do what they do every day, is looking for businesses like all of you all to contract with. So, the next slide is going to say, like, if you were to meet someone like Ruby, right, at one of these conferences, how would you, what would you say to her, right? If you were to meet Ruby and you had 30 seconds, and this is something, again, you don't need to say right now, but something to think about. How would you pitch your business to her that differentiates you from everybody else? So lead into different differentiators. Capability statement, I talked about it before. And before when I talked about it, I mentioned the core competencies. I said that's one of the things that you have to, have to outline in your capability statement. Another section of your capability statement is differentiators. What makes your company different from other vendors? Something else you might want to think about and start just kind of jotting down in your own notes, like what makes me different from other vendors. That could be recipes, patents, intellectual property. It could be your geographic location. Could be, customer success stories. So if I am the work spot, for those who don't know, the work spot is direct to garment print production. If I'm the work spot and I previously did a large order with State Farm and it was a great experience, we were happy, they were super happy, everybody's high-fiving and all the good things, right? If I'm putting together my capability statement, I'm going to have a customer success story in there from some Jake at State Farm, somebody, right? Because when I now go to pitch to Allstate, they're going to be like, oh, where State Farm trust them? Okay, right? Or even if I go to pitch from somebody that's not in insurance, if I go to pitch to AT&T, they're going to be like, oh, well, they were able to handle State Farm's business. I know that they can handle mine as well. So you want to think about these things in terms of, again, what are some of the ways that make you different? You know, your reputation and years in business. If I'm the book joint and, you know, man, book joint goes back to a store on Jeffrey, back circa, let me see, Verlene, when were you on Jeffrey? See, I told you, I know y'all. I'm just calling y'all out my name.
07.
07, right? She's like, I'm not new to this Black business game. I've been doing Black authors and Black storytelling. We not new to this, right? So that is a differentiator, because see, now it's real in to be, you know, Black books now, but it didn't necessarily used to be, right? So those are some of the things that you want to think about and be able to include in this section of what makes you different. Identifying your ideal client. So I like to say, don't go shooting fish in a barrel. You want to think about a company that, you know, maybe you've heard about in the news, you did some research, and you find out that they don't have what you're offering. Like you say, I know that I can add value to their business by X thing that I do different than somebody else, right? You want to propose a solution that they maybe haven't thought about before. That's the way that you want to approach this. You don't want to just apply for everything that's out there and be like, man, I just hope one of these sticks. No, you want to be strategic about it, right? You want to, once you get to that point, respond to a request for proposal. That's also known as an RFP, where the buyer specifically knows what they want, what they're looking for, and they're actively looking for vendors to submit proposals. That way, you know, when you're responding to an RFP, it's important to make sure that your response is catered to what they're looking for, not, you know, a generic, I do everything, I'm great. And it's just like, okay, you know, cool story, bro, right? But it's not responding to the specific things that they are looking for. So common terms, we've talked about some of these already. So capability statement, we've started to talk about statement of qualifications, request for information, pre-bid meeting, request for proposal or RFP, we just talked about. We'll go a little bit into each of these for a second. Capability statement is also known as a statement of qualifications. So both of these are things that, these are non-negotiable. Like capability statement, it is the resume of your company, basically, as it pertains to procurement and contracting. It's typically 1 to 2 pages. It highlights your company, your key offerings, and your track record, as we just talked about. You can work with organizations like ours or some of the other folks that are part of this program to help you develop them. There are certainly templates for them. You want to make it stand out from the crowd. Again, think about it very similar to the way that you would think about a resume. Request for information. So a prospect may ask you for a request for information or to attend a pre-bid meeting. So these are more so where they're putting their feelers out, where they want to compare some of the baselines across you and other vendors. And so they may say, you know, hey, send us, you know, they may request, they may put out a request for information and where now you're just going to go in and fill out some basic things or attend a pre-bid meeting. I've actually been looking at RFPs for City of Chicago and the state of Illinois for a number of reasons lately. And they pretty much all have pre-bid meetings attached to them that, you know, as a requirement to go before you proceed in the process. So that's a term, those are terms to be familiar with. We just talked about request for proposal or RFP. There's also a request for quote, pretty much synonymous with each other. So all of those things, right? Corporate, okay. We're gonna jump over now to government. So you see in corporate, we say contracting, government, procurement, but again, it's about one the same. This is example of a business owner who has a leadership business, and it's like this company sells to both private and public sector. So for some of you, it will make sense to sell to both. For some of you, it will make sense to sell to one and not the other. Again, really taking a step back and doing the thinking to say, who do I want to sell to is, where you figure that piece out. Government procurement, 6 steps we're going to break this down to. Identify, research, ask, obtain, prepare, and propose. So identify who within the government do you want, because there are lots and lots of layers of government, right? Is it the city? Is it the county, the state, the federal government? And then within those, it's an agency underneath, right? So for city of Chicago, for example, DCASE. DCASE is the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events. Right now, DCASE has an RFP that's open for tourism. They are looking for folks to work on a tourism campaign, and this is specific to the city of Chicago. This campaign, I believe, will be used in the city, but it will also be used nationally. Okay? The federal government also has an RFP that's out right now for tourism, and obviously national. It likely doesn't make sense for a local company with no national experience, of our business sizes that we're working with here, to shoot for the federal government tourism campaign. Because, not saying that, you all are not worldly and don't know things, but the perspective that they're looking for the campaign to draw people to Wyoming, the company that is based in Chicago has done all this work in Chicago or maybe other big cities, may or may not know what are the key elements to draw someone to Wyoming, right? So again, it's think about who it makes sense for you to want to shoot for to work with. Research. We talked about researching on the corporate side, the company and what it is that they're looking for. Same goes here. There are a few ways you can research. You can register for portals. Most of your government entities and agencies have portals that you can get notifications for, or you can just go and sign into and look to see what's out there. The handout that you're going to receive afterwards will have a list of websites where you can do some research and portals that you can sign up for to start to wrap your mind around what opportunities are out there. FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act. If I did not say this earlier, get ready, just be prepared for alphabet soup, an acronym just for no reason. The world of procurement, and particularly government-based things, like every single thing is an acronym. Every single thing is a bunch of alphabets, and it's just, it is what it is. Like, it's part of their shtick, okay? But the Freedom of Information Act, thanks to the Freedom of Information Act, as part of the research that you do, you can literally request information on who was awarded contracts. And you can see, the dollar amount, who it was, where they were, like all of these things. And you don't want to know this just for the sake of knowing it. You want to know this to get an idea of who's winning these types of things. What are the sizes, scope of the businesses that are winning these things, so that you can make sure that you are fishing in the right pond, if you will, right? You can look for contracts that are similar to what it is that you want to do, so that you can see who's buying those services, what entity is buying those services. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, it's important to look to find out what agency is buying those services. Okay, so this is just an example of what on the Cook County side a bid list looks like. So it has the bid number, the commodity and department. So it looks like the sheriff office needs to buy some Motorola radios. The public defender's office needs to buy storage boxes. Shocker. And then next to it, it'll have a download list, which just gives you more details. It's used like a PDF, has 60 pages that really goes into the specifics of what it is that they're looking for, and then the dates of when this opportunity is open, because all of these have start dates, end dates, application due dates, things like that. So we identified, we researched, now we're going to ask. So, attend procurement and networking events, develop relationships, ask for help, right? Be it the WBDC, the CMSDC, us over here at Bill Brownsville, like this is where using your network really, really, really becomes helpful. I know there were even, as we've been, going through this process, like I said, Katrina is recently certified and she was having some issues with some of the pieces, yada, yada, yada. And with a contract that she won, and she asked one of our local subject matter experts at the WBDC, right? And they helped her push it over the finish line, like get it done, right? That's why they're there. This is why we're here, to offer these things. The WBDC also has a PTAC. A PTAC is a procurement trade assistance center. That's what it stands for. And their whole their wheelhouse is procurement, right? So government procurement. They have a course called GovCon 1.0, right? It's literally government contracting 1.0. They have how to do business with the state of Illinois, how to do business with the city of Chicago. So the information is out there. You just have to ask. Okay. Obtain. Number of codes and numbers and things that you'll need to obtain. So NACSIS code, or North American Industry Classification System. Most of you are probably familiar with this and have seen this up until this point. You put your NACSIS code on your tax returns. A lot of applications ask for a NACSIS code. There's also the National Institute of Governmental Purchasing Code. I know I had never heard of that, but that's an additional code that you have to get, or potentially have to get. You have your unique business, your unique entity ID, right? So this replaced a DUNS number. As of, I think it was April of this year, the federal government did away with using DUNS numbers. Just to note, DUNS numbers themselves did not go away. Certain vendors, business vendors, still will ask for a DUNS number as you are setting up a vendor account for you to purchase goods or services. Especially a lot of people think about them when it comes to business credit. DUNS is from Dun & Bradstreet. They are a credit reporting agency for businesses. So, there was a lot of confusion around that in terms of like DUNS numbers went away. It's like, well, that's not true. They did go away in terms of their use with the federal government, and the federal government replaced them with the unique entity ID. Okay, so that's the number. We all know your EIN. There's a CAGE code, which stands for Commercial and Government Entity Code. There's this MPIN, or Marketing Partner Identification Number, which I had never heard of. So there are all these codes and numbers that are part of the things that you need to obtain. You don't necessarily need to get all of them. And please, for the love of God, don't go online and Google how to get a blah, blah, blah number, because the first thing that's going to pop up is somebody trying to get you to pay for something that you probably don't need to pay for. So again, work with us or some of these other agencies, right, in terms of obtaining these things. So then obtain, and we're almost there. Continuation of the obtain. Now we're talking about obtaining your certification. So as you see, These are all different certifications that are possible for you to obtain, particularly for government procurement, right? So you see for women. So when we were talking corporate like what you'll need for corporate contracts, it was WBE. And I was like, boom, check, done. Well, for government, if you want to be a woman certified business, it could be WBE, WS, what is it? WOSB, EDW. It could be throw all the letters against the wall, right? And it goes down the list. So this is again why I say like you need to know specifically who you're trying to go after, because you can go after a bunch of things that are unnecessary. 8A is a certification. It's federal government that also gives you mentoring and access to like certain types of contracts. There are certain types of contracts that they are specifically looking for 8A certified businesses. Okay. And then we get to prepare. So you've identified, you researched, yes, for help, you obtained your codes, you obtained your certifications. Now you prepare. Understanding the process and knowing standard expectations, obtain certifications and bid for different, what do you call those opportunities? If you meet the requirements, I can't stress enough that if you meet the requirements, portion, partner with others to improve your chances. So a little note on that. For businesses that are of the size of most of you, you will not, it's not highly likely that in the beginning you would be able to bid on and receive what they call prime, be the prime on a contract, or the primary owner of the contract, right? That's usually going to big company X, or if it's for, some type of a development is going to the developer, etc. But these contracts, let me just kind of give an example that hits fairly close to home with where we are. There are announcements, seems like every other day, of new lovely developments that are going to sprout up in Bronzeville. These developments are typically a mixture of residential and commercial. These developments are going to big name developers, but built into those contracts, so they're the prime, right? The big name developer. Built into those contracts, however, are requirements there are certain requirements for disadvantaged classified businesses, right? So minority, women, veterans, LGBTQ, CQ, like etc. Built into, and so you could become a sub or a subcontractor to that prime contract, right? If I'm the big developer, there may be built into this contract a portion for outreach, like community outreach. Well, I see designers is on here. If I'm a creative agency, and I do creative marketing, I'm definitely not going to get the developer's contract because that's not what I do, right? But they have a piece in when the RFPs are out there, it says all the things that are in there. And so there may be a component of that contract that says you have to do X amount of community outreach. So that's marketing, right? That's all of that. That's creative. And so I need to find a business to do that piece. Well, I know I have X amount of minority-owned business that needs to be a part of this contract. So I'm going to subcontract out to designers, right? And so it's getting in and partnering with and meeting folks who could be primes on contracts, who can pull you in to these situations, which is what we're really talking about when we're talking about partnering with others to improve your chances. Okay. And then the last piece talked about writing a capability statement. We're about to talk about that right now. So capability statement, we talked about those kind of throughout. All the pieces that are in orange are some of the ones that we've already covered. Core competencies, differentiators, different codes, ID numbers, certifications. Well, if you got all that, because we talked about it and you jotted down some notes, um, you literally just have a handful of other pieces. Your headline, which would have been your headline if you were writing a pitch, your company overviews, again, same thing, those couple sentences that you would talk about, contact information, past performance, and testimonials, like I talked about with the example for the work spot. Okay. Again, we can help with capability statements. Some of our partners in EMBA can help with capability statements as well. So what's next for you? Drum roll, please. It depends. It depends on your readiness. It depends on the readiness of your business, you know, as to where the next step is for you. I would say that for the folks on the call, most of you are in between or some combination of get packed and get out on the road. Get packed is really just you all are above or beyond, you know, I would say the one and possibly the two bullets that are here, knowing who, you know, what percentage you want to structure your company because your company's already structured, getting your basics in place. You know, think about it, bylaws, operating agreement. If you don't have those things, like you need to start doing some research and looking into those, especially if you are set up as a corporation, right? Your business licensing. Again, these are things that you want to make sure that you get in place. But I would say that most of you are probably at the point of start small. So start building experience with estimating, you know, estimating and kind of scoping out work for different types of clients and contracts, and start building a team and working with a team. The consideration of, do I go corporate? Do I go government? If I ultimately think I can do both, it's okay. Which one do I start? And then which one do I grow into? Get on the road. This is, you know, the buyer's mindset. So I would say, like, when more is brewing at this point, they have gotten placement on, you know, shelves and big box and bigger in arenas and things like that. So at this point, like, they have an idea of the buyer's mindset, right? So that's where you want to get to. You want to understand the buyer's mindset, understand how they move, how they're going to be looking at things. Now you're talking about researching other opportunities. What's the next big thing? How do you build your capacity to meet the bigger demand? And then, as I talked about before, becoming a subcontractor, identifying partners that can help get you there. Go the distance. This is once you're like, boom, we pop, lock, and drop in. We out here. We certified. We have done some contracts. Now it's time to register yourself in databases. There are a lot of vendor databases that corporations and governments can then go and search in when they're like, I'm looking for an X, right, or a Y. They can go and they can search for you and you pop up. Start going to trade shows and outreach events so that you can, again, meet the decision maker right there and kind of give them your quick spiel. So, you know, kind of the where are you headed? Again, it depends. I think I have throughout the presentation given examples or referenced most of your businesses, and that was very much so intentional so that people can start to think about, like, how is this applicable to me? Some others that I just want to throw out there, you know, for those that are in the food space or catering, event planning and production, this could make sense for corporate clients, for government bodies. You know, people are back in the office and they are. I actually read an article today about how catering has catering to companies has taken off so much because folks are back in the office doing the thing. For those of you that are retailers or that have things that can go on a retail shelf, think again corporate, but from the standpoint of getting on a big box store shelf or airport concessions, right? One of the things earlier said airport concessions. There are a number of your businesses that I think could make sense for airport concessions or larger development, the retail component, like I was just talking about. If someone is developing a project that is going to be mixed residential and commercial use that's going to span, a city block, how do you become a part of that, right? That again goes into that corporate and sometimes government contracting piece. Production makes all the sense in the world for corporations, schools, institutional contracts, right? Professional services and entertainment. Um, I believe I have on here, maybe, tip-off game, right? That's entertainment. This applies to me to entertainment as well as professional services, as I was talking about, like with, design or marketing or accounting. Think about larger corporate contracts as well, government contracts, schools, other types of institutions. They all need to subcontract out those things. I'll open the floor. If there's anyone who is like, I'm not totally sure how this is applicable, certainly unmute and throw it out there, raise your hand, and we can get some thoughts going. But then, while we're thinking about that, this is the EMBA team, right? So we are all here to help. So the WBDC and CMSDC are pretty much like our subject matter experts. There are two certifying agencies themselves. And then, you have us at Bill Bronzeville, our friends at Far South CDC out on 115th and Halsted, our friends over at Greater Inglewood, on 63rd and Halsted, and our friends out west at New Covenant CDC. That's right over there by Sinai Hospital, to share space with them. So we cover a pretty good geography. We are literally all here to help. You can schedule time with any of us to go through any of this in more detail. I wanted to drop this link in the chat. Once I finish sharing my screen, I'll be able to drop it in the chat. One of the things that I found to be helpful as a start to get the juices flowing, CMSDC has, I think, a pretty good checklist on their website. I'm going to drop the link to it in the chat for you. But it's a good list, like documentation list, checklist for the things that you'll need to gather if you are going through their certification process. This is certainly not an exhaustive list that covers all requirements for all types of certifications, because this is specific to theirs, but I think it will give you a good idea of what it is that, what are the types of things that you can start to work to gather. And well, that's all I got. I lied a little bit. Look, I went longer than I said, but we definitely still have a few minutes if there are any questions. Like the handout that we're going to send, I'm just like paging through it right now. It has some of this information that we talked about and shared in here. Has some contact information. My only ask for everyone, honestly, would be with regards to our friends at the other agencies, is please, and not that they said this is Lauren saying this, please don't reach out to them directly to start your certification process until we've dotted some I's and crossed some T's together. Like, you don't necessarily have to do it with me. Like, I'm not particular like that, but it makes your process that much easier if you come to them with a ready-made package and then like a few questions, right? Versus, starting from scratch. That's really what we're here to help you with, is the start from scratch part. I also want to mention, because I forgot to mention earlier, this workshop is the first piece. Come the new year, there will be some connection events that will be with you all, MSDC, WBDC, and some representatives from various buying agencies that, so I'm not saying that necessarily Allstate's going to be there, but for example, let's say someone from Allstate, just because they're one of the sponsors, but folks that are buyers that are in the procurement realm. And your point, our point of having them there so that you can pick their brain a little bit. You can understand what they're looking for, what their process is like, rub elbows, start again to make those connections. Okay. Now that I'm not sharing my screen, I can see the question. We'll share slide deck. Yes. So, well, the deck itself, this recording, you'll definitely get this recording. After you get none of the links in here are like, there aren't any links in here that are live or anything. So I wouldn't stress that part. And then definitely, like I said, the handout. So, is there opportunities for someone to help others within the RFP process? I'm not totally sure, Charlene, if you can unmute. I'm not totally sure I follow your question.
Hello. I'm sorry I have a baby here. I cry a little bit.
No.
I'm asking, like, I'm really good at drafting RFPs and doing those things. So is there like a lane for me where I could help others that want to go through those processes?
In terms of the drafting them, I'm not sure. We can definitely follow up with our friends at WBDC and CMSDC. I don't know why that's always so hard for me to say, but I suspect because like on the government side, they're being drafted by the procurement team, the government procurement teams, right? And similar on the corporate side. So in terms of, now if you're talking about drafting the response to them, I would say, yeah, there probably is a lane for that, right? I would say that there, as a consultant, I think there absolutely is a lane for that in terms of the response to RFPs.
Yes, that's my question.
Yeah, no, I think certainly as a consultant, I absolutely think so. Because for a lot of folks, it's the first time doing it, right? And so if you have experience in doing it and success in doing it, people absolutely will want someone like that on their team in terms of assisting. So I think there's consultant opportunities there.
Lauren, if you page up a bit in the chat, you'll see a question from Clifton, if you can address that.
Directories to find certified vendors for locals. I believe that the answer to that is yes. And I am going to WBDC, that they would definitely know. So let me get my instinct says yes. My instinct says yes. But let me confirm with WBDC and see what additional information.
Lauren,
Katrina,
if I can
Yeah.
help answer that question. There are lists, and I think there are several types of lists that are out there that you can obtain. I have a friend who is a developer, a commercial developer, and he was able to obtain an MBE list for all of his subcontractors. So I'm going to reach out to him and say what resource did he use to get his list, but there are lists that are out there.
Thank you. And Katrina, when you get that information, could you share it, actually not just with Clifton, but to everyone on the call?
Absolutely.
Thank you, ma'am. Sweet. Any other questions?
I have to ask quickly, with the person who signed on with iPhone, you probably didn't see my message, but I just need to know your name just to ensure that we have you covered from our registration list. Oh, okay. Thank you, Will.
Okay, well. All right. Well, everybody, I appreciate you. I hope that this was helpful. And like I said, we're going to get this content over to you. it won't be like, I'm not gonna lie to you and say tonight, but it will be tomorrow. It will be tomorrow. And Katrina will follow when she has a response back regarding those lists. With that, I'm gonna call it a night. Thank you, everyone. Please be safe, stay warm, and I am notorious for not being video, but oh hey, bye, night. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good work.
Thank you.
Thanks,